Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Stumptcast. I'm Rick, and I'm joined, as always, by Price, Ash, and Jasmine. Say hello, everybody.
Hello.
And yes, welcome back to another thrilling episode, everybody. As we do with every single podcast, we're just going to start at the top with, how is your week? How's everybody's week?
Yeah, it's going pretty well. As far as gaming goes, I've discovered a new gaming addiction with...
It's not Clicker Heroes?
No, not Clicker Heroes. I've moved on. But it's Cabela's Big Game Hunter Pro Hunts is what it's called.
I have no idea what that is.
It is... I saw Jay Smith play it on YouTube, and I was like, oh my god, this game is amazing, because it's a hunting game that's like really like more like simulation focused than like arcadey, which I guess has been a kind of a big complaint of a lot of the hunter games. But it has this.
Don't you have like X-ray mode?
No.
Simulation.
You don't get X-ray mode. What you get is when you shoot something, it then goes X-ray, so you can see where the bullet
so it's like that
goes.
sniper game?
That's like
It's
that sniper game. Yeah.
And so the thing is like you have to really get familiar with where is a caribou's lungs versus, a black elk versus, like, and I'm going to tell you right now, I know way more about the anatomy of these animals than I had ever thought I would.
This is really going to pay off when the zombie holocaust happens.
When I am called upon to be some kind of veterinary surgeon on a wild boar because we're out in the wilderness, they'll be happy that I know exactly where that thing's lungs are.
You'll kill it, but you'll be able to expose the lungs correctly.
I'll be able to do it in a humane fashion. But so the thing
where
is,
the good meat's at.
Yeah, it has just like really great simulation mechanics of like, where your scent trail is going, and you can't make too much noise, and you don't want to be in their sight line, and so it really feels great. And I've always enjoyed the hunting mini games in games like Assassin's Creed or in Red Dead Redemption
or
Oregon Trail.
Oregon Trail.
Oh, that was the beautiful
The original.
part of that game.
Yeah.
That's why we played the game.
Yeah. So this one is it's a really solid game. So if you're interested in that, and if you played the sniper game and you enjoy that, like the kill cam thing, this has got it. And like that's like the whole game. You drop in and it's like go hunt stuff.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I was saying to Bryce earlier when he mentioned the Cabela's game, there was a awesome Cabela's game, hunting game for the PS2 that I can't remember right now, but if you guys remember, then go ahead and remind me in the comments if I haven't found the game yet, because they actually have made some pretty fun games.
Yeah?
I mean, I'm not a big hunter. By that, I mean, I've never hunted a day in my life, but it's fun. It's fun to shoot virtual animals.
But here's the thing is like, this is the kind of game that is not marketed towards me. I never would have even thought that this is a game that I would want to play. But as soon as I saw gameplay of it, I was like, I need this. I need this in my life. And so this is the kind of thing that is, I mean, it's wonderful. I've been having so much fun. And yeah, that's pretty much been it.
I kind of want to really play this game now.
I know, damn it. I mean, my week has been filled with fucking Clicker Heroes because of this asshole.
I got him.
So now my next week will be filled with shooting animals for no reason.
Yeah, it's okay. It's a step up, buddy.
It is.
This is how we begin the healing process.
I have honestly been playing a lot of Clicker Heroes. And beyond that, man,
It's been mostly rendering.
it's been a lot of rendering. It's been a lot of YouTubes, and we saw Guardians of the Galaxy again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah. So good.
And beyond that, I have not had anything breakfast taco related this week.
Oh, God.
What a disappointment.
I know, right? I had a breakfast burrito, though. One of the damn best ones that I've ever
All right.
had.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
Step in the right direction, but
Yeah.
not quite there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You broke the streak, man.
I did. I'm sorry.
But at
Next
least you
time.
mentioned it. At least you mentioned it.
I know. I'll keep it going. I'll try to find a better breakfast taco place next time. I'm sorry, I'll be
We'll
better.
get there. We'll get there.
We just had Halloween though too. Yeah.
Yeah.
We did.
Lots of candy. Lots of trick or treating.
That's right.
Yeah. We crashed a party last night.
We sure did. Yeah. It was weird.
Yeah.
We walked into someone's house that was blasting music like the whole fucking block could have probably heard the music, and it was like 1 a.m.
Yeah, it was crazy, and we were like, "What's going on in here?" And Jasmine, being the go-getter,
Everybody was like, "Let's go look at it." No one wants to go in there. Jazz, you did. I'm like, "Fine, fuck, I'll go in there."
My reservation was that by this point in the night, all the booze was probably gone, and I didn't have any booze with me, and I'm not going to go in this house full of complete strangers and not drink. And
yeah, we like
And that was
walked
accurate.
in,
There was
and
no
we
booze.
left immediately afterwards.
Ash was not shy. We walked into this house, and there's like 20 people in the kitchen. We have no idea who owns this house, and Ash just opens the fridge and looks inside like, is there beer in here? There's no beer in here, and just kept going to the backyard.
Yep.
Oh, Ash.
Pretty classic.
And then the next day, we actually see on Reddit the same minions that we ran into.
Yeah, we saw
I had
some
a picture of them on like the TriMet bus. Just
some
be
giant minions from Despicable Me, and then
they were at that party.
Yeah.
Or at least their lookalikes were at that party.
Yeah, there's no way that it could have been the same people,
Yeah.
right? There's no way.
And
Craziness.
Yeah.
Yeah, Halloween. Anything with Jasmine's world this week?
I bought a new sketchbook and I've been nonstop just drawing. I'm really happy with myself because like that's something I've been always wanting to get back into, and now it's like perfect. I'm just going at it. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, check Jasmine's Twitter if you. She
Jasmine's super good.
tweets some of her images from time to time. I love the one you did of the alien with the
Alien
little
tap
hat.
dancing?
It was so
Yeah, I
good.
was watching like an Alien Let's Play because I'm not going to play that game. And I was watching it and now I'm just thinking, I was like, oh, I'll just draw a xenomorph.
which is
Oh,
also
we'll just make it the really cute one from Spaceballs.
Spaceballs. Yeah.
Forgot all about that part.
Yeah.
And then, other than that, I've been reading everybody's comments, and I find it really fucking hilarious that everybody constantly gives me crap about being like a wimp when it comes to horror games. And it's just like, it's not that bad. It's not even that scary. It's like, what are you guys talking about? It is terrifying. I don't know if people realize this, but while we're playing Five Nights at Freddy, I was sitting on the couch in the fetal position, hugging a pillow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I cannot take that level of anxiety.
Price was
at
by
all.
the end as well.
Yeah.
How dare you accuse me?
He had his own pillow.
I did.
Yeah.
I had my knees to my chest and I was rocking.
Yeah. I have
Back
the
and
guilty
forth.
pleasure of watching horror games, but at the same time, I don't enjoy playing them.
Yeah.
That's like me and Aliens, you know? Like, not as bad now, but growing up, my biggest fear was being abducted by aliens, but I couldn't stop watching alien abduction movies. It was almost like a know your enemy kind of a thing.
Oh boy.
Was it October or Red Fire?
Fire in the Sky?
That one.
Fire in the Sky
Oh
was
my god,
terrifying.
that seriously.
Watching it as an adult, you
freaked me
realize
out.
that the scary part is only the last 10 minutes of the movie, but it's terrifying.
It is absolutely terrifying. I remember watching that, and I had no idea what it was.
The
And it was
aliens
a
look like
slow
elderly
movie.
men who have been like horribly disfigured from a structure fire.
Yeah.
So they just look like third degree burn victims who are about 90 years old.
Yeah.
But they have superhuman strength because they're dragging this guy around the spaceship and doing these experiments on him. It's horrifying.
Yeah, I just remember my
But-
family
I
was
don't want to
watching
watch
it.
this. I don't want to
Oh,
watch this.
My
I don't
family was
either, but I'm
watching it. I
compelled
remember
to.
I was kind of like, what is this? You know, because like you said, it doesn't happen until like the last 10 minutes of the movie. And it is freaking terrifying. Like I actually had nightmares for months.
And it's one thing that, like, that's just a scary movie, but it's based on true events. And this guy, Travis Walken, swears that he was abducted, you know, which I don't buy it too much now as an adult, you know, because I'm a reasonable person, or so I would like to believe.
Like to be considered.
No, it
But
was real.
there was that movie, and then there was another movie with Christopher Walken called The Communion, again based on true events. But it's this guy was under like regression therapy, and so he was under hypnosis, and a lot of it was suggestive, but terrifying fucking movie. And that movie has like 3 different varieties of aliens, and they're all weird and terrifying.
I prefer the Star Wars aliens.
Yeah, me too.
Little Jawas. Little
fun,
Jawas.
yeah.
Yeah, Houdini. You know, little guys.
Did you guys see the video where it's like a guide to the Star Wars universe from this guy like called Star Wars Fan 1?
No.
No.
Oh
we
god,
need to watch
I'll post it on the comments. It's hilarious. He's
Oh,
like,
man.
"Hi everybody, I'm Star Wars Fan 1, and this is a guide to Star Wars."
You know what we should watch? You know what we should watch? We should watch that YouTube fan-made Star Wars movie where every YouTuber had like 30 seconds.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And they just compiled them all together. And it's actually,
that's-
I watched like 10 minutes and I was like, this is great. I
That's
want to watch it
actually
again
pretty
later.
great. Yeah.
And Ashley and Anthony Birch
Yeah.
from,
Hey, Ash, what you playing?
they actually did their own thing too.
Oh,
did one.
oh.
Yeah.
That would see. I watched that before I really knew who they were,
Yeah.
so I wasn't really looking for them at the time.
We just got onto the biggest fucking tangent I've ever seen.
I know.
That's what's fun about these things. Tangents are great. All right, people love tangents.
Rick, how was your week?
My week was Halloween-tastic. We got through Halloween and still playing Beyond Earth, trying to learn it. There's a lot of new weird stuff with Beyond
Yeah.
Earth. It's taken a lot of time to wrap my head around.
But by the time this is out, we should actually have been playing it.
Yeah. By the time this is out, then we should have some Beyond Earth up on the YouTube. Go check it out.
You guys will have visual evidence of how shitty we are at this game.
Yeah.
Especially me, because I have not beat it
subjectively
yet.
shitty.
We're all
Everybody
newbies
has
at it.
beaten this game already.
But we've
except for
beaten
me.
the game, and we've gotten 3 different variants, right? Ash, you got the Mind Flower, Mind Bloom.
The Mind Flower, the Transcendence.
The Transcendence
The Harmony,
victory,
yeah.
right? I got the purity victory with the Earth Settlers, and Price, I
got the Emancipation with Supremacy.
That's right.
It's a really interesting one because you build this warp gate, and then you have to send military units through it. You have to get over 1,000 combat strength through to win. And so it's like you're producing a ton of military units, but you have to keep sending them through. It's really weird, but like, you know, the whole like gist of it is that you're sending all these soldiers through to Earth to take it back.
Right.
I was like, that's a cool story. Yeah.
Right on. Fucking Civ.
Civ. Yeah, lots of Civ. And in addition to that, just living life,
Yeah.
watching X-Files like crazy.
For sure.
Yeah, we started watching X-Files again.
Yeah.
For Halloween. Yeah.
We were like contemplating what we were going to do. So I was like, let's just watch X-Files and we'll wait for some kids. We had one fucking kid.
Yeah.
They were probably like 14 years old. And she was really cute. She was dressed like Princess Amidala.
Nice.
But that was the only trick-or-treat we had.
Man, back us up, commenters. People don't trick or treat like they used to, right?
No, they
I
don't.
live in an apartment. I was like, okay, maybe it's just because I live in an apartment, but you guys live in a legit neighborhood.
That's what I think that trick-or-treaters are just more picky these days. They're like, they want their parents to drive to the super fancy neighborhoods.
Right.
You know,
Like, we live in a
Drive us out to the
shithole, Mom.
suburbs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
This
you know,
place
I also
fucking
think-
sucks. Take me to the place
I'm
where
not
they give
saying
whole
that-
candy bars.
I'm not saying that Jazz and I live in a shithole, but like we're close enough to like a major street that I think we're not even going to bother.
You know, I think it is. It's also
Well, it
helicopter
doesn't matter
parents.
if you think that you live in
They
a
take
shithole.
them
Do the
to,
kids
like, the
think you live
mall.
in a
That's
shithole?
that. Yeah,
Instead,
for sure.
you know. I miss the good old days where you could like go outside and actually have fun. Because I remember going trick-or-treating all the time by ourselves.
Yeah.
No
Come
parents.
on, kids. Put
We
the
just had
toilet
our fun.
paper. Light some bags of shit on people's doorstep.
You're just asking for danger there.
No,
Yeah.
no.
The
Yeah, it
world
was
is
great.
a scary place full of monsters and aliens. As
Kids, listen
Rick was
up.
telling
Next
us.
year, we'll give you Ash and Jazz's address. Okay? Trick or treat. Have some fun.
That is a terrible idea.
All right, let's move on to our first reoccurring segment.
Hey everybody, it's the Marvel Minute!
Alrighty, so Marvel news. Holy hell! There was a huge event that happened where Kevin Feige, the head producer on all the Marvel films, who kind of is running the show there, where they essentially had like a mini Comic-Con announcement. They got a whole bunch of people together down in Los Angeles at the El Capitan Theater, and they did what they usually do at Comic-Con, and essentially what they did is they told us all the movies they're going to be making for the next 5 years, which is
It's ridiculous. There was a lot of movies.
Out of curiosity, do you think that was in response to DC releasing like a huge amount of...
I do think there's a piece of it that was in response to DC doing roughly the same thing a few weeks earlier, which was DC announced all of their upcoming movies, which, a bunch of Superman, Batman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern. They're doing the whole thing. They're going for Marvel's, thing. And then Marvel released the Avengers Age of Ultron trailer, which we talked about last time and which exploded the internet. And then they had this event. And I think that part of it was, I think that what they would have done had DC not done that is maybe they would have released some of this information, but not the whole slate.
Right.
But they felt like, you know what? If DC is going to do it, we're going to remind everyone, we've been doing this for a while. Marvel's 10 movies deep now. Guardians of the Galaxy was the 10th movie in their
That's
series
ridiculous.
of films.
I guess that's true.
And starting like next year, they're starting to ramp it up to 3 movies a year?
Yeah, so next year we're getting 2, and then after that there'll be 3 and 3, and
Oh my
it's kind of
God.
going
insane.
off years of 2 and 3. So the movies that were announced, we already know about Avengers: Age of Ultron and Ant-Man, which are coming out next year. We've heard a lot about that. We've talked a bit about that on the podcast. So Captain America 3 is coming out May 6, 2016, and it has the subtitle of Civil War, which has been, the internet has been just
I'm
falling to
stoked.
pieces over this because it's so amazing. We know that Robert Downey Jr. is signed on to play as Tony Stark. We know that the Civil War storyline from the comics is all about roughly, Cap versus Iron Man and their respective teams surrounding around this thing called the Superhero Registration Act. It's like all people with powers have to register themselves with the government so they can be monitored. And so obviously Captain America is always about freedom. He's like, that's not freedom, that's fear. That's his line from Winter Soldier that he says. And, whereas Tony Stark is kind of the more establishment guy. He's like, I want to know where all these guys are. I want to know who I have to prepare to take down because he's always preparing. So we're going to have this big butting of heads. And they introduced, because he's going to be in that film, Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. So the first new hero we're getting in a while is Black Panther. It's going to be in Civil War, and it sounds like he's going to be kind of in between these two who are fighting over this.
It's been a while since I read the Civil War series, but I loved it at the time. I mean, it's been like 7 years.
Yep.
Was Black Panther in the original series?
He was in it, but not as like a huge central piece. The central piece was around Peter Parker as Spider-Man, which we know Marvel doesn't have the rights to. Sony currently has the rights to. And so it sounds like Black Panther is going to be kind of taking that position of being between the two.
Okay.
Because in it, he was for the Registration Act and then he was against it, Spider-Man. And so it sounds like we might have a similar thing happening in Civil War. Anyways, I'm going to just kind of like quickly go through all the ones that we talked about, and then we'll maybe do like a little bit of caps on it, and then we'll talk more about them in future episodes because there's too much. There's just too much info. So Doctor Strange comes out after that later in November of 2016.
Isn't that going to be Benedict?
It's going to be Seth Rogen?
Benedict Cumberbatch is in final talks, so he's still not officially signed on to the film. I have a feeling, and this is a thing that does happen sometimes, agents will release information about their actors when they're in final talks, essentially to get a larger payday, because what you do is you say, oh, look, Benedict Cumberbatch is going to be in this huge Marvel film. The internet's going to explode when they find out, and then we can demand a higher salary because obviously the fans already want it. Yeah. So this has happened a few times before. I have a feeling that's why we know that Benedict Cumberbatch is in final talks, is because they're like, we want to get a couple of extra zeros on that number there at the end.
I just raised my price from $1 million to $1 billion.
Give me that Robert Downey Jr. money. Okay, so after that, in 2017, that'll be our first year where we get 3 Marvel movies. We're getting Guardians of the Galaxy 2, follow-up to this year's Guardians of the Galaxy, which has been one of the biggest hits of the Marvel franchise. I think it's the number 3 of all of them, only behind Iron Man 3 and Avengers. And then in that year, we also get Thor 3, which is subtitled Ragnarok, which anyone who knows anything about Norse mythology or who knows anything about these Marvel comics, it's essentially the Norse apocalypse. All right, it's the end of days.
I know about the MMO.
Ah, yes. It has nothing to do with that.
Okay.
But anyway, so it's a really big storyline in Thor, and it's a pretty awesome thing that they're going to be centering around. So that's going to be huge. And Tom Hiddleston is signed back on to play as Loki in Thor Ragnarok, so we know we're going to be getting a lot of Loki in the coming years. And then at the end of that year, in November, that's when we get Black Panther, his solo movie all about Black Panther. And Kevin Feige, in his presentation about this stuff, he essentially confirmed what I had talked about in the last podcast, which was we talked about how Andy Serkis might be the bad guy to that.
Right.
And so he made an allusion to, he's like, and if you're paying close attention to the Avengers Age of Ultron trailer, there are a lot of little hints as to what Black Panther is going to be about. And so it seems like there might be a little bit more credence to what we talked about last time with Andy Serkis.
Nice.
Okay, 2018, Avengers 3 Infinity War, Part 1. That's right. It's going to be a 2-part movie. So it's essentially going to be like a 5-hour-long Thanos movie, which is going to be amazing. Super excited. They said that they're going to be having, every Marvel hero up until this point. They're calling it a crossover event. So the fact that they're calling it that makes it sound like maybe they even mean they're going to bring in some of those Netflix characters, some of the characters from S.H.I.E.L.D.
Sure.
They're saying, we want everybody in this. And it's a big time event to be going with it.
I was curious too if you think that they're doing a 2-parter because they're like running out on their contract date, so they like want to film as much as possible at one time with all these actors.
It's possible, although part of me just thinks that it's one of those things where they've kind of written a lot of checks that they now have to cash. And it's like the only way that you can really do that story now that you've set all these other little pieces up and all these, up until that point, it'll be almost 20 movies, right?
Right.
It's like, okay, we do have to make it pretty long just to be sure that we give everybody their fair share to kind of resolve
well, that's
all
what,
these
and
conflicts.
that's what I was going to say. Like, once you've got, say, 20 characters, main characters, together in a movie, at one point, it's got to become about screen time, right?
Yeah.
Because if everybody were to have like 4 minutes of screen time, that's a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you had to split it up just to give everybody equity on screen.
And think about like Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings series is a good example of what is essentially one large film, right? But it has so many characters and so many side stories and so many other things going along inside of it that it doesn't feel like when they separate the movies that like, oh, they were just trying to pad it out for time or whatever. It's like, no, they needed that. You need that time to tell that story. So I have a feeling that it's going to still feel like 2 really solid movies.
Nice.
But before we get Avengers Infinity War Part 2, we're getting 2 movies in between. And the 2 movies that we're getting in between are Captain Marvel, which I'm super excited for because Kevin Feige has confirmed that it is going to be Carol Danvers, who is She's formerly Miss Marvel and then took on the name of Captain Marvel. She's a cosmic hero. She's one of my favorite superheroes. And she's essentially Marvel's Superman as far as power set goes. Like, she can fly. She's super strong. She can shoot like laser beams. Like, she's got every power. She's one of the most powerful beings in the universe. And she's also a really dependable, likable character like Captain America. She's very noble and has like a good grounding to her. So I think she's going to be really a big hit. And after that, we get the Inhumans, which is another cosmic storyline, which it sounds like they're building up. They want this to be a huge franchise, and a lot of people have been guessing that what they're wanting to go for is to kind of make a new X-Men out of it. Like, they want people to treat Inhumans like the X-Men. It's this whole group of people. They all have different weird power sets, and they have this thing called the Terrigen Mist, where you can take someone who has no powers, they go through this thing, and they come out the other side with some new power that has to do with them. So this allows them kind of like that mutant-style thing where you can have dozens and dozens and dozens of characters with crazy powers, and it's all surrounded around this one thing. So that's going to be pretty cool. And then finally, in May 3rd, 2019, we get Avengers Infinity War Part 2, the end of this whole Phase 3 that they've been building up. So lots of Marvel stuff. And I've already gone over really, really far with our Marvel Minute from previous weeks. So any questions from you guys? Or do you
I just have a comment.
Yes.
It's just, I mean, I would say it seems like Marvel's putting the cart before the horse, planning, 4.5 years in advance if they hadn't had so much success. But there's a very real chance that the world might end before we see all of these movies. It's just, it blows my mind how organized the Marvel franchise has been with like, okay, here's the way we're going to roll this out. We're already talking with Andy Serkis about this Black Panther movie that's not going to be released for 3 years. It's just it boggles my mind.
Yeah,
and I will say that I think with all these announcements that they're making, I do think it is quite likely, especially that we're getting Black Panther in Captain America 3, which is a year before he gets his own movie, right? I have a feeling that a lot of these characters might get cast and be put into films earlier than their movies. So Captain Marvel, her movie doesn't come until 2018, but there's a very good chance she could actually be in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So we could be seeing these characters coming up sooner, and it's just we're getting their announcements of their solo
I feel like they're going to come in earlier just to give a little taste of what's going to happen. And if they like them a lot, then it leads on to their movies.
And that's even more impressive because that just kind of like thickens the web, they're planning web even more,
I just want to see
it's very impressive.
Robert Downey Jr., in the Guardians, because I've seen some of the comments and the comics, and they're so fucking hilarious how Robert Downey Jr. is just so impressed. Yeah. And these guys are like, fuck, this is normal. This is normal.
A Tuesday. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that when we see Infinity War and all those movies that are coming out 2018, 2019, when we have the crossover stuff, we're going to see some awesome on-screen moments of like Chris Pratt and Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and all of them just riffing on each other. Yeah. It's going to be an exciting
I'm excited
time.
for that.
It's a good time to be a fan
That's one of the
comic
things
books.
I love about like the Guardians and Avengers is that they just have that chemistry and just the trailer. I've watched it so many fucking times. And I just love how they're just having a normal moment. Yeah. It's not epic. It's not heroic. It's just them being normal.
Hanging around trying to pick up Thor's hammer.
Oh, I love that so much.
So yeah, if you haven't seen that, they released a different version of the trailer. We won't talk about it too much, but go check it out. Yeah. Everybody tries to lift Thor's hammer. Some shocking results come out of that. All right. I think that's going to be it for today's Marvel Minute.
Solid.
Woo! That was a Marvel 12 minutes. Yeah.
That's a lot of minutes.
And Marvel Minutes. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the main topic for today, which is forgotten video game characters.
Yeah.
Video game characters of yesteryear that have been kind of overlooked or just kind of forgotten in general.
Left behind.
Yeah.
Or the ones that just didn't quite take.
Yeah, what happened to these guys?
Yeah.
So which one do we want to talk about first?
Speaking of characters that didn't take, I'd like to start out by talking about Alex Kidd, which... Alex Kidd, I don't remember too fondly because I wasn't a Sega kid. I was a Nintendo kid. You were a Sega kid, however.
I was a Sega kid, but I never had
Alex Kidd was before your guys' time even. Because up until about I think he came on the scene in 1986, okay? But Alex Kidd was designed to be the Sega mascot. And he had several successful franchises.
I feel like the Sega mascot was Echo for a while.
They really tried to force that on us.
Yeah, because Echo was like crazy, and then Sonic came, and then it pushed Echo out of the way.
Yeah, so Alex Kidd's first game was Alex Kidd Miracle World, which came out in 1986, and Alex was sort of this sort of this monkey kid,
But wait,
kind of like
on which console would it have come out on?
It would have been. It was on the Sega Master System.
Master System. Okay.
Yep. But the thing was, this wasn't a character that could really compete with Mario going into the new millennium or the new decade.
Sure.
So they kind of put Alex to the side and introduced Sonic. And from then forward, Alex was just a forgotten character.
Interesting.
But, let's talk, let's see some reception here. During the Sega Master era, Alex Kidd was regarded by fans as the de facto mascot of Sega. IGN editor Lucas M. Thomas called Alex Kidd likable, though saying that his voice, when injured in Alex Kidd The Lost Stars, made him sound like a scared little girl.
Oh.
IGN editor Travis Foss stated that while Alex Kidd was popular for a few years, the character Wonder Boy had a strong cult following for many years following the release of Wonder Boy. I'm really familiar with
Yeah,
Wonder
I've
Boy.
never heard of one. He might be one we had to talk about.
We'll have to dig into that a little bit more in the recap maybe. But yeah, so Alex Kidd, kind of a failed attempt at creating a mascot.
Sure.
And maybe that just points to the fact that you can't force these kind of things. These things have to kind of like evolve, what's the word I'm looking for?
They sort of like have to find their own audience.
Yeah.
And, like they have to, the audience then has to say that.
That's what I was saying.
I think speaking of trying to force a mascot on people, one I wanted to talk about was Blinks the Cat, which was when the Xbox launched. One of the titles that came out, I think it was a launch title, but if not a launch title, it was definitely pretty early on in the original Xbox's lifespan. And it's this cat who's got like a crazy, weird time vacuum thing, and the whole, it was a platformer kind of game, and it all circled around like time mechanics. You could rewind the game, you could fast forward things, you could pause things and move around. And so I played the game, and it was actually pretty fun. It was a little bit.
It sounds like Limbo or like Braid.
I'd say probably the closest. I would say probably the closest thing to it would be maybe like Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. Those games where you like jump off a thing and then rewind and then do a different thing. But you could have like multiples of you going, so it's like Braid in that way. But the thing is like it was a pretty good game, but it didn't quite have the kind of character to really grab people. Like it's one of those ones where you look at the design of it, and it's just so obviously an attempt to be cool, right?
It's Poochie.
It's this cat. It's Poochie.
It's Poochie.
It's this cat that he's got like sunglasses on his head or goggles or something, and he's got
that
these
that
boots
DreamWorks
and,
smirk.
Yeah, he looks so manufactured to take. And the thing is,
Give him a smear of Surfer.
I think that success of another franchise completely overshadowed Blinks in that Halo was so huge that Microsoft very quickly said, oh, this is our mascot, Master Chief.
Yeah.
He's this badass soldier, whatever guy, and blah, blah, blah. And so it was just like Blinks got swept under the rug. So you can try and make a mascot, but it's not necessarily going to work out.
Yeah,
for sure.
What was the reception for this game?
I think it got some...
It got some love. It sold 156,000 copies, it looks like.
Is that a lot for this time? That doesn't seem
2002,
like a
that's
lot.
not a lot.
I mean, when GTA 5 sold 1 million in its first week, that seems pretty paltry.
I want to say that this is it's a moderate. It's not what they probably want.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably enough not to call it a failure, but by no means would it be a success.
Yeah. Whereas Halo probably had a copy out there for every console.
But it was part of the platinum hits.
Sure.
And again,
Platinum.
I'm going to go ahead and say I think that was an attempt to let's try and get at least a little bit more money out of this by reprinting it.
See, I'm not really familiar with Blinks the Cat. I was more of a Bubsy the cat.
Right, yeah. If we're talking cats.
Yeah, let's talk about another cat.
Because Bubsy was on Sega. He was great.
Yeah.
I can't give you any really specifics on it because at the time it was just like there were so many of these games. He was one of those cats that was like tried to be funny. He had like all these catchphrases. Like he had a ton of sound bites, and then on top of that, like I think he was like kind of like Sonic.
A little bit. I mean,
counterpart to it.
Yeah, it was like this attempt at making, just like the same kind of style. It was like, we want to be somewhere between Sonic and Mario. So we do the platforming stuff like Mario where you're jumping up and down and stuff like that, but we want it to feel fast like Sonic.
And just reading about the reception,
he's on a list of the 13 most hateful video game mascot
and
characters.
It was probably
Hate it or hateful? Like, he's just full of hate.
He must be hated.
I feel like that's because like he constantly had all these phrases he would say, way, and he would die in so many different ways.
Do we have any phrases that we could share? Somebody look up some phrases.
Well, I don't know, but look, go down to the bottom of this page. We're looking at the Wikipedia entry, y'all. And look, they even had a television pilot. They
In
filmed
93?
a cartoon and a pilot to try and get this to be a huge series. Like, and I don't know if y'all remember, but there was a Sonic animated series.
Oh, yeah.
There was a Mario animated. There were actually 2 Sonic animated series. But like, this was a thing. You make a video game, you get people hooked, you make a series about it, et cetera, et cetera. And it did not work for Bubsy.
No.
And I remember playing those games. I hated them. They were not fun. I did not enjoy those
I kind of
games.
enjoyed it.
It looks just. I mean, it looks like the same kind of shit that you would see on every single console at this time.
Yeah,
It's just side-scrolling.
Typical side-scrolling platformer of the 90s.
You
Jump
know,
on
he's
this
fighting
thing, don't get hit by
aliens,
this
and they're
thing.
trying to steal yarn. It was a weird game.
Very, very
Trying
odd
to steal
game.
yarn.
They like
Cats love yarn.
These aliens in the yarn.
you collected yarn throughout the entire thing, and you fought aliens.
That's racist.
Man.
That's racist against cats.
Racist
Are you
against
sure
cats.
it's racist or specious?
It's been,
It's speciest, yeah.
hey,
Sure.
don't pin me down, you guys.
All right. Well, I kind of want to segue off of kind of what Price was talking about, how Xbox characters ended up becoming like wanting them to become cool looking. I want to talk about Toe Jam and Earl a little bit. So
This is Ash's
Because they
favorite game.
were cool looking.
No, they were fucking awesome.
They were
Look at them.
doofuses.
they were awesome. Anyway, Toe Jam and Earl, I'd like to talk about anyway, just because I want it to come back with the Toe Jam and Earl 4. But Toe Jam and Earl came out originally for the Genesis. Obviously, the Genesis main mascot is Sonic. There's no question about that. But I'd argue if there's a second mascot, it's Toe Jam and Earl.
What about Echo?
No, Toe Jam and Earl all the way. And it was such like an unexpected hit for them too, because it was just made by 2 guys that had no idea that this like weird roguelike kind of game would suddenly take off and find a lot of audience with it. But anyway, it had a really good reception on the Genesis. It ended up, I forget how many it sold, but it had really high scores going up into 90 percentile.
Yeah, let's see. Mega, whatever Mega was at the time, 91%. Sega Pro, 93%. Mega Tech, which, okay.
Sure. Yeah.
87%. Mega and Mega Tech cannot agree. And then Mean Machines, 87%. All these things completely outdated.
Yeah.
But, if you think about that like a Metacritic kind of score, that's huge. Sure. Up in the 90s, late 80s, 90s, yeah.
And there was a sequel made for Genesis, and then as you get over to the Xbox version of Toe Jam and Earl 3, they have made it such like a...
Look at this female character that they foisted upon
Her
us.
name is Letitia, by the way.
Oh, God.
Yeah, they really went in the deep end.
Yeah, they really did.
You couldn't stick with a name like Toe Jam and Earl and then give her a wacky name. You had to call her Letitia.
For sure. And they made it like they're from the streets, the hood. They really tried to force like the hood aspect
I think
of
that
this.
the thing is like, because the whole thing in the first one, it was about like the funk, right?
funk,
It had funky music. It's about the funk, so it made sense. And so the way that they carried forward funk, for some reason, translated
All right, you guys,
into this.
So, like, hip-hop.
you guys aren't seeing what we're seeing, but this is the most racist shit. Okay? This is a blue alien, right? She's got what appear to be cornrows. She has big hoop earrings, like ridiculous eye makeup, and she's just wearing a bra.
Yeah.
and like the
just
big
like-
golden bracelets and
You know what she
necklace
reminds me
and
of?
all
This
stuff.
reminds me of like during that time of like it came out in 2002. This was like the time where it was hip hop was huge.
Yep.
She kind of reminds me with the bra of Selena.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like it seems like it's that time
Selena
frame.
was dead for like a
Years
decade
before that,
this.
Yeah,
But
that's what it kind of reminds me of. It kind of reminds me of that like that really thing that they were trying to capture.
I
Like, the
feel like it's
hip-hop.
got a little Kim vibe to it.
But overall, what we're seeing is that like it was obviously like this was a marketing thing.
No,
This
yeah,
was
for
like,
sure.
let's capture.
This was,
yes,
Yeah.
pandering. Yes.
And obviously, they just went in such a weird direction. I feel like it was, again, forced down upon by Microsoft to make it just look weird and hip and cool and stuff. Same with, I think, Oddworld that came out on
Sure.
Xbox at the
I
time.
loved
Had
Oddworld.
like all of those soda machines all of a sudden and
Yeah.
something weird with its version that came out
well,
on Xbox.
on the upside, PC World did praise the game for its laugh out loud humor, and it acclaimed the 2-player mode as damned good fun.
I just remember the hip hopopotamus.
But anyway,
Yeah.
2002, that's the last time a Toe Jam and Earl came out, and I wish they would make another. The studio that made it broke up. They're now making Doki Doki World, or at least the original creators are making Doki Doki World for
Doki Doki Universe.
I've never heard of this before.
It's got a really cute art style, but it's a weird concept. Anyway, I hope it does well so that something will encourage that studio to make something else like Toe Jam and Earl.
We'll post a link to Doki Doki Universe in the recap.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, so Toe Jam and Earl.
I think there's
did
one.
you touch on the second one? Was the second one any good?
The second one was...
That's the one I'm more familiar with.
The second one was not the same as the first one. The first one was a top-down roguelike where every world was randomly generated.
Yeah, because
the second one was side-scrolling. Mm-hmm. It was not randomly generated, and it was still somewhat the same core concept where like you walk around. There's all these invading humans that are like trying to just
steal your funk,
screw up your funk, and so. It had the same art style, it had the same concept, but it just didn't... I felt because it wasn't randomly generated, it just didn't have the same charm.
So that's a really interesting thing and such an odd thing that was commonplace, sort of, to let's make a sequel to a game but have it be nothing like that game.
Right.
I'm just having shades of Zelda 2. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
It's
I remember that.
Some
game.
people
It was
remember Zelda
weird.
2 fondly, and I'm like, what is wrong?
It's
with
so
you?
bizarre. Like, I get it now, looking back on it and the changes. I get kind of how the people, might have enjoyed that. But, like, it's such a shocking jump and difference
Sure.
to go in that direction. It sounds like this with Toe Jam. It's kind of like the same thing where they're like, let's do something completely different because these characters are enough to sell this thing. And it's like, but if people played the game and liked it, don't you think they want more of that?
I feel like at the time, too, it was something like the devs were just bored
Maybe.
of what they had made, and so they want to try to challenge themselves to make something else.
Do you think it was the devs and not the
I do.
studio saying like,
Yeah.
Because I could also see them being like, come on, we want these guys to compete with Sonic and Mario, so they've got to do the same thing that Sonic and Mario do.
Be side-scrolling, don't
Exactly.
be top-down.
Exactly.
Well, the side-scrolling one actually had a lot more details too. Like they could actually go in and actually give more
like graphical
character
fidelity?
detail of
Okay.
Toe Jam and Earl, and they get to like play with different types of aliens. Because you were on Funkatron, you get to see their neighbors. How weird Funkatron was. It was very colorful and bright.
I feel like there's a lot of defensiveness in your voice right now.
I loved
She
it.
loved the second
because
one.
that's the one I played, and I loved that one a lot.
I love the first one so much.
Well, it looks like we've got a house divided here.
Yeah,
That's right.
These two will never agree on.
They'll never
Toe Jam
agree
and
on-
Earl.
And just as a quick side tangent, since someone mentioned Sonic, I think I mentioned Sonic, but
Sonic.
Sonic, I'll say, is obviously the main mascot for Genesis at the time. It's now on practically every platform, but it's not the same. I think we can all agree. Yeah, it's not the same game at all. And it boggles my mind that the developers would just not release another side-scrolling Sonic, because everyone would want it.
Well, and I feel like they've even done like nods to it from time to time in some of their newer Sonic games.
In some of them, they have teased the fact that, you can side-scroll a little bit, but then we're going to make it third-person.
And then we find out, and then you go third, and then you
There
go
was a
Wasn't
really
there
fun
one-
Sonic
was it
game.
Generations?
I want to say on Xbox. That was a lot of fun.
Dreamcast. Do you mean
Oh.
Sonic Adventure?
Maybe it was Sonic. Yeah,
Sonic Adventure.
Sonic
on
Adventure
Dreamcast.
that was 3D though, right?
Yes.
It was 3D. Yeah.
That was a transition that worked. That
Yeah.
game was fun.
But
Too bad the Dreamcast failed.
But what
Second
about
was a blast.
Generations? Didn't Sonic Generations go back to that side-scrolling
that's what
thing?
we were talking about. Yeah, in Sonic Generations, you could do side-scrolling, but then like halfway through the level, they forced you to go third-person.
Oh, that's
Exactly.
right.
They've never done a full-fledged side-scrolling game since Genesis, practically. Except for if you count the freaking Game Boy and, like, I'm sure Vita and other handheld ones. But for the main consoles and for PC, there's never been another side-scrolling one.
And I'll say, I feel like one example of that done well are the Mega Man games that came out a couple of years ago on PlayStation. It was like Mega Man 9 and... Was it 8 and 9 or is it 9 and 10? I can't remember. But they went back. They made them fully looks exactly like the NES game, not even like the ones
Sure.
that came out on Super Nintendo or afterwards. They were like, we're going to go back to the original Mega Man style. This is going to play like the original Mega Man. Those games are tough as nails, but
Right.
they are so good. And it is really just like, hey... We know you liked Mega Man 3. You want some more Mega Man 3? Because we're going to make you some more Mega Man 3.
Yeah, and it did well.
It did well.
really
they did very
well.
well. Enough to make a sequel, like immediately.
R-Type did the same thing for PS2. R-Type made a fully 3D but side-scrolling R-Type, and it was gorgeous and beautiful, and it was still freaking hard as heck. But R-Type is one of those things where you think, oh, they could have gone third person. They could
Sure.
have gone, a full flight sim.
yeah.
But no, they kept it to the core concept, and I loved it. It was amazing. So anyway,
So Ash
that's my tangent.
Ash wants that from Toe Jam. All right.
and
I think
Sonic.
when we're talking about mascots, I think there's really one that kind of jumps out as being like a shocker to all of us, I think, right? Crash Bandicoot.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how is it that we've gotten to the point where it's like anybody who grew up with the PS1 knows Crash Bandicoot?
It was Crash
was the
Bandicoot
mascot.
was the Sonic of the PlayStation.
It was like whenever you saw stuff about the console wars, it was Mario standing next to Sonic, standing next to Crash.
Yeah.
Like that was it.
and it had a good run too.
It did. They had several games that were successful. I think the first 3 or so were done by Naughty Dog, and then Naughty Dog went on and decided let's make some other things.
Yeah.
Right? They made Jack and Daxter on the PS2 era,
Which was so fun.
which was a great series. That it got really dark and weird towards the third one, and yet it was
Yeah.
still fun.
Sure.
And then now Naughty Dog made. They did the Uncharted games, which were massively successful. They did The Last of Us, also massively successful. And it's one of those ones where it's like, we lost the mascot, I think, because it was the studio was the one who really did it well.
Yeah.
And so after Naughty Dog left Crash, we had this other whole set of games that were made by different developers, different publishers.
Yeah, that really sort of ran it into
Yeah,
the
they
ground.
ran it into the ground.
I was kind of blown away with looking at all the different games that have been released since the third installment that Naughty Dog released back in 1998, I think it was. There are so many games.
Yeah, go look at this Wikipedia page. It's
There's mobile games. There's canceled games.
there's party games. There's racing games.
The last mobile game was in 2010. Was released for the iPhone and iPod Touch.
Yeah.
Crash Bandicoot Nitro Kart 2.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I know. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Naughty Dog really is what made the game fun, and everyone else was just sort of using the character.
Yeah.
They were riding the coattails.
Yeah.
And so it's like, Crash, the thing about Crash is, or I guess let's compare it to a massively successful mascot. Mario has been a focus of Nintendo from their beginning, right? And I think every generation has had a good Mario game. Right? Like every console generation has had a Mario game where you kind of go, that was a fun Mario game. Mario Sunshine on the GameCube was actually really fun. It was a good follow-up
I don't
to
think
Mario
Nintendo's
64.
ever made a bad one. They've
I
made
know-
okay Mario games, but never a game that's just been like, this is shit.
And I think
Yeah,
that's an
it's true.
important part of it. It's like, it's not just the success of the character that will sell your games, right? But it's also, you have to continue to make quality. And I think that maybe Sony didn't know what they had with Crash and maybe let Naughty Dog move on to
it's
something
interesting.
else.
We don't know the complete backstory
Sure,
to it
sure.
because we don't know who originally owned the rights to Crash at the beginning. Obviously, Sony did at one point, and then apparently more recently, Activision had it for a while.
Yeah, I wonder how Activision came about. And
now recent rumors are that Sony has the rights back, and that has sparked a lot of rumors that maybe there's another one coming in the pipeline, but who knows?
Yeah, because you can't have one of our other characters that we're going to talk about without Crash Bandicoot, right?
Who?
Conker?
Conker, oh boy. But before we jump into Conker, because I think that is a great one, I do want to say this. If they got the rights back, which I would love if Sony got the rights back, I want Crash Bandicoot in Sony All-Stars fighting game. That game,
Oh, yeah.
it's a great game. It's just like Smash Bros, but it's got all Sony characters, and it's been missing Crash Bandicoot, and it's so weird to be playing with all these other Sony characters, and they have so few real mascots to not have Crash. It's
It
just
has
like
to be because Activision owns it,
it must
right?
be.
Right,
Because
yeah.
they've got Sackboy, which has been a successful mascot. They've got, all the characters from a bunch of random Japanese games, but we don't have Crash.
We don't?
We need Crash in that game.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my little tangent. I want Crash back with Sony, making good games. He deserves a second chance.
All right.
So Conker, you want to talk about Conker?
Conker was great.
Let's start talking about Conker, because I didn't play much Conker, but I know it came out when I was, freshman, sophomore in high school, maybe.
He was like a
Maybe
side
later
character.
than that. He was a side character.
He was a side character. He was in Diddy Kong Racing. That's the first time I saw
That's where
Conker.
he started. That's where he started.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a rare character. I feel like most people know him from Bad Fur Day on
Yeah.
N64.
Yeah, because that was his
That was his breakout game. That was the game.
Um,
And it did so well because, we were all adolescent children laughing at poop jokes and cursing.
Exactly.
You're right though. I was like, where did he first appear? The Diddy Kong Racing. Diddy Kong is so childish and delightful. It's so weird that the poop joke humor that Conker took.
Yeah.
It really took on this like just.
It was
dirty.
like it
Dirty
was
game.
dirty.
I mean, it was
super dirty.
It's like, like kind of like Family Guy or any other kind of like really like kind of like dirty humor going on.
And they
on
really-
Nintendo 64.
They really marketed it that way, which I
Yeah.
was really surprised that Nintendo let them market it,
It
that
was a
way.
risk.
You
Which
fought
I-
a giant poop monster in this, didn't
because in the game you
did.
start out binge drinking.
Yeah,
You wake
hungover.
up
Yeah.
completely hungover.
Yeah.
And like all your shit, I can't remember how the game went, but you were like fighting a poop monster. There was tons and tons of cursing.
Tons
then
of
you
blood.
go to like this like Auschwitz kind of level where it's like
Yeah.
World War II.
Yeah, it's
and
like
you have these-
D-Day.
Yeah.
I feel like that's in the Xbox one.
No, that was in the 64 version.
Really?
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that it was that the
Yeah.
Xbox version was just a remake.
Oh, that might
Oh
be.
yeah,
Yeah.
Live
Yeah.
and Reloaded,
Yeah,
yep.
it was just a
Because
remake.
there was the teddy bears
Yeah.
that you fought, and they were all like these
And
really
you
weird
cut
like
them up into
medical.
it, like you
Oh,
mutilate
man.
them, and like it was so violent and vulgar and everything.
Sure.
It's such a weird direction to take it, but it's like, how great would it have been if Conker really took off as being like, here's all these mascots that are goody two shoes, and then here's the dirty mascot,
Right. They really, Rick, you'll have to link to it in the recap for this episode, but they really advertised the sexualness of it as
Yeah.
well. I remember there being
Yeah.
like models and stuff in the
Yeah.
advertisements for this
Yeah.
game.
Wait, is this like the impetus of like the furry culture that we have? Like, I'm sure that this is like
No,
one
I
of the
feel
like
the furry culture really
proto-furry-
started with Lion King.
Who knows? Tangents, all right? Let's talk about these mascots. Conker should have taken off. And for some reason, he got buried. I mean, part of it, I think, was the rating of the game and all that kind of stuff. There was, a kind of like a reverse marketing push from like parents and whatnot that was like, don't buy this game for your kids because, it's bad
It's
for
bad,
them.
yeah.
It's dirty and all
Also,
that.
I feel like it shouldn't have taken off. I feel like it's a one-trick pony. Like, I think that they were so ridiculous and over the top from the get-go, like out the gate, that it's like, where do you go? You turn yourself into a Duke Nukem franchise.
Sure,
you
fair
know?
enough. And I mean, and then at the end of the day, what were they? They were a Banjo-Kazooie clone.
Yeah.
You know? I mean,
mean-
it was that same 64 style of platformer.
You wonder why it didn't take off. I'm going to blame it 100% on Microsoft just not loving Rare. That's what I'm going to blame it on. It's
Yeah.
That Microsoft was like, oh, hey, Rare, you've got all this great talent, and you can make things like Conquer, you can make things like Viva. Oh, we don't care. You're going to make Kinect games for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean that's the sad tale of Rare.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, is them getting acquired by Microsoft.
Yeah.
Rare did such great games.
It's so strange too because this is kind of like the strange connection between Nintendo and Microsoft in the sense that
Rare
Conker was
yeah.
in Diddy Kong Racing, which is purely
Right.
Nintendo.
Other things, too, like Rare owns the rights to Perfect Dark, and they made a Perfect Dark for Xbox, but
And it was awful.
yeah.
But the one that they got to make for Nintendo was amazing because it was
amazing.
essentially like GoldenEye 2.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
like GoldenEye, but we're not held down by a franchise. We can do whatever we want. Let's have aliens and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Amazing. Rare was possibly the best third-party developer in the age of the Nintendo 64.
Absolutely.
And has now fallen into...
it's sad what happened
Yeah.
to it. I mean, Banjo-Kazooie,
Amazing. The Donkey
Fantastic.
Kong games that they made, amazing.
Absolutely.
They're great.
Their
Yeah.
partnership with Nintendo was just fantastic. Everything they made was solid gold.
And then you don't want to admit that Banjo-Kazooie 3 for Xbox exists.
I didn't even know that that's a thing.
It was they had a really good concept. I love the new art style, but it was just the whole like, let's put vehicles in this game.
Well, from what I heard, it was actually more of like so they started out making it a traditional sequel. It was going to literally be
Right.
Banjo 3E, exactly like Banjo 2E and Banjo Kazooie.
Yeah.
And instead, when they started making this little mini game component to it, I think that they were kind of rushed to be like, we need a game out now.
Right.
And so they were like, let's change tactics. We're going to make this nuts and bolts game. And it's all going to be about this vehicle, whatever. And it felt more like a side game. I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
part of its failure was it didn't sound like Banjo 3 to me.
Yeah.
They totally marketed it and told me, this is a Banjo spin-off game that's about making vehicles. If that's not up your alley, don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really disappointing because I
Weird
remember I was
departure,
like,
though.
I really want to play this. I love Banjo-Kazooie. I love Banjo-Tooie. But then when it came to like just vehicle making, I lost all interest in the game.
And I think that does bring us to another example of a character that, Banjo-Kazooie was one that they were huge. They were on the way to being next to Mario all the time. And then...
And they
we're
probably
not
still would be if it was on Nintendo.
Yeah, and we're probably not going to ever see a good Banjo-Kazooie game
Oh, no.
ever again.
No.
It's too late for that.
All right.
So we've got a few characters left on the list, but let's try to fire through them because we're ending the end of this, or we're nearing the end of this segment.
I've got two that I just want to throw out there, and if you're interested in these things, go look them up.
Do it.
On Nintendo 64, Glover and Buck Bumble. Two really fun games that I enjoyed, and those characters just didn't really take
Another
on.
64 character that was on PlayStation was Gex.
Gex.
Gex the Gecko.
Yep.
Gex.
Yeah, he was a mascot for Crystal Dynamics. He did pretty well on the PlayStation. He was on the 64. I remember playing that game. It was awesome. You pretty much just went into TV worlds and flipped channels.
Yeah.
It was a great concept.
He's now selling car insurance. That's what he's doing.
Essentially. At least he's doing well.
Yeah.
At least he's doing
Wasn't
well.
he British? He might have been British. I can't remember.
There was a franchise when I was a kid, Boogerman, which kind of reminds me of Conker, just going for that gross out humor.
Yeah.
But I feel like Genesis was really trying to shove Boogerman down our throat, and I remember me and my cousin really loved it. But I would love to see a Boogerman reboot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rick loves getting boogers shoved down his throat.
Shut up.
I agree, though. That was a fun game. I played it, too, and I thought it was
Boogerman was great. You flung boogers and you farted at people. It was
great. It was great.
Yeah. All the things that adolescent boys love.
Nice.
Anything else?
Can't think of anything
we
right
hit
now.
all the minors.
And I'm sure that there's a ton that we're missing, and you guys are like, why didn't you talk about this? But that's what our comments are for. So go ahead and go to our comments and see if I didn't include it in the recap, because maybe I'll include some stuff that we forgot afterwards.
Yep.
Anyhow, give us your 2 cents, because we love that kind of stuff. And let's move on to our last segment of the podcast.
Stumpt's Adventure Corner.
All right, let's get into this week's Stumped Adventure Corner. I'm going to preface this by saying that I had barely enough time to think of a concept for this week's adventure. So I do what any good author does in this situation. I completely plagiarized something else.
Okay.
So with that in mind, just forgive me for that and see if you can guess who I stole this from as I read through it.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Jasmine woke
Hi.
up in her house on a Wednesday. She crawls out of bed and notices a shoe on the wall.
Shoe on the wall.
A shoe on the wall?
Can I even see the shoe on the wall?
That shouldn't be there at all. She looks out the window and says, gee,
Gee,
more things are wacky.
more things are wacky
She saw
out there.
3.
Is this a Dr.
So
Dr.
she
Seuss.
went down the hall and she said, hey,
Hey,
3 more things are wacky today.
wow, look at all these 3 wacky things.
And in the bathroom... and in the bathroom more. Jasmine, I need you to roll for how many things are wacky in the bathroom.
How many wacky things are in the bathroom, guys?
Between 1 and 20.
15.
You know, it would have been really nice if you had rolled a 4. In the bathroom, 15. She began to dress, and then she said, wow,
Wow,
15 more things are wacky now.
15.
She looks in the kitchen, and she says, bye, Cracky.
Hi, Cracky.
5 more things are very wacky.
What's going on? I'm a little confused.
She was
Just blind.
She was late for spooky witch training school.
There it is.
She started along. She saw that 6 more things were wrong. And then 7 more. And Price the dwarf. He looked wacky too.
Well, I mean, I can't see, so he's probably just a beautiful blur.
Price said, nothing is wacky around here but you.
Nothing's wacky around here. It's just you.
Huh.
But Jess didn't want to take that shit.
Did not.
So she pointed her fingers and fired a zap. Roll for the zap.
Oh, yep.
What? What did I do?
3. I didn't do it very well.
But she was blind and the zap fell flat.
It went zip.
It went zippity zap.
It went zoop.
And she ran back to school and yelled at Miss Bass, look!
Look! Miss
Not-
Bass!
9 things are wacky right here in your class. She went out of school. She went out the school door. Things were worse than before. She couldn't believe it. 10 things were wacky more. Then she counted 11. Then 12 worse things. She got scared and she ran. She ran and knocked over Rick the gunman.
Hey, what are you doing? I'm standing here.
I didn't see you. I'm sorry.
Ugh.
I'm sorry, gunman, is all she could say.
Sorry, gunman.
Watch the fuck out, he cried.
Yeah, watch the fuck out, will ya?
I'm drunk on Wednesdays.
I'm drunk on days.
I'm drunk on days that end in day.
Only 20 things will be wacky. Only 20 more things will be wacky today, he said. Just find them and then you can go back to bed.
Yeah, just go to sleep. You gotta go to sleep.
How many things are wacky right now?
You need 20 more.
20.
But but Jasmine was sick of these games. These people were weird. They all seemed to enjoy talking in rhymes, and that filled her with fear. They all smiled and laughed while cars were fucking flying. There was floating people and physics were defying. Some people had no heads, and there was 2 suns in the sky, and a yellow cat was everywhere, and it looked super fucking high.
Oh my goodness.
Jasmine had enough. She wanted it to be over, so she walked to the warehouse and rented a bulldozer. With a maniacal laugh and being blind as a bat, she bulldozed the town in 10 seconds flat.
I did it.
She screamed out, "Yeah! I bulldozed it all. Next time, don't put shoes on my goddamn wall."
Yes! God damn, that was intense.
That was beautiful. You made it rhyme. That was wonderful.
You're
Oh, man.
so
So who put the shoe on my wall? Was it you, Ash?
Sure, I wasn't in the store.
so yep.
It probably wasn't a shoe on the wall. It was probably just Ash standing there.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
He's a giant, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're blind.
You're blind.
I want LASIK.
Roll for LASIK. One.
One.
Damn it.
So much
Your eyes got worse.
And so
I feel like the
concludes-
dice is against me.
Yeah.
And so concludes this week's Stumped Adventure Corner.
Thank you so much, Ash. Oh yeah. Okay, so before we wrap it up, just like I had asked last week for you guys to give us a shout out on iTunes, and we did get a couple reviews. I'm going to read this review from My Musical Goddess. Super funny and entertaining. I'm a huge fan of your videos on YouTube, and when I found out you guys also had a podcast, you can imagine how excited I was. Your opinions on topics, your anecdotes, and your personalities flow together so well and create a hilariously fantastic podcast. Keep up the good work and stay awesome. By the way, the D&D and Marvel Minute segments are by far my favorite. Me too. Love you guys, and thanks for being awesome. Well, we love you, My Musical Goddess, and
Totally love you.
yeah, we would love all you guys to keep going to our iTunes page, keep giving us those 5-star ratings, keep commenting, let us know your feedback. We really honestly appreciate it. And check out our recap. Check us out on YouTube. Subscribe. Check us out on Twitter, Stumpt Gamers. Go ahead and follow us there, and find us on Facebook as well.
Yep.
And come back next time.
Bye.
Bye.